because Pashas Kisisa has the Egel. All of that, it's finished. Moshe Rabbeinu is in the mountain for 40 days. And if you take the Torah literally, in those 40 days Hashem told him how to make the Mishkan. He probably told him a lot of other things also, but the record. And when Moshe is, at the end of the 40 days, Hashem gives him the Luchas. And then the next pasuk starts the Egel. So tomorrow's Chita starts, Vayiten al Moshe kachaleise. Hashem finishes making the Luchas. And he gives it to Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe is going down the mountain, and just around that time, the whole fiasco with Egel Azov ensues. So today's Chitas, the beginning of Pashas Kisisa, and I would say that today's Chitas is probably a quarter of the Pasha. Today's Chitas and tomorrow's Chitas is together much more than half the Pasha. Like I explained to you earlier, because we want to give a Levi the Pasha of the Egel Azov, because the Levim did not participate. I was once in a shul, there was no Levi. Couldn't find a Levi. So what you're supposed to give a kohen to Elias. What if you have no kohen and you have no Levi? You have to give it to Yisrael. So I once was able to read. I got the Aliyah of the Egel. We couldn't find anybody else to do it, and the guys were afraid to take the Aliyah. I took the Aliyah. I'm a bad Jew. You give it to a Levi, and they're in the Pasha of the Egel Azov, right? Now, and of course that's a whole story. It's a whole story. How the Eibusher wants to destroy the Jews, and Moshe doesn't let him, and there's a whole negotiations. It happens over a period of time. So what I wanted to talk about is the end of the Pasha. The whole Pasha of Egel Azov unfolds, and it interrupts the story. Hashem gave us the Torah, right? When Hashem gave us the Torah, He gave us a very important mitzvah. What's the mitzvah? You have to make the world a home for Hashem. You can't just live in this world and try to run away from it. That's the Hemshech HaDvarim. You go out of Mitzrayim, you become a free people, you get the Torah, and you build Hashem a house. You're not finishing serving Hashem until you make this world a home for the Eibusher. It's interrupted by the Egel. It's interrupted by the Egel, which is a big scar on the history of the Jewish people. It's a big scar of the Chumash. And it affects how everything is going to play out historically until Mashiach comes. The Egel Azov is almost as important an event as the eating from the Eitz Das Tevara. It changes everything. It changes our relationship with Eibusher, changes Torah, changes Ruach, it changes everything. At the very end of the Parasha, you go back to how the Parasha started. That Moshe is coming down with the second Luchas. And Hashem tells him to write down the Sefer Torah. In other words, when he came down the first time, he came down with the Luchas. When he came down the third time, Hashem gives him the second set of Luchas, which Moshe excavated from the bottom of his tent. Remember that? Moshe had to find the Psal Lecha, the second Luchas, Moshe had to take out of the ground. The Eibusher put him there, but Moshe had to take him out of the ground, to bring him up the mountain. And the Eibusher carved the Aseres Dibis in the second set of Luchas. So the Michtav was Michtav Elikim, the Ksav was Maisa Elikim, even though the Evanim were Bepashas, not Maisa Elikim. And Moshe is told, now write the Sefer Torah. And he comes back down, and we all know the end of that story. That Moshe Rabbeinu's face was radiating, and the Jews couldn't handle it. And Moshe puts on a mask. So Chazal say, Rashi says, Bo yurei kama koicha shel Aveda. Look how powerful an Aveda is. Before the Jewish people did an Aveda, they looked at the Shechina, and they had no trouble. After they did an Aveda, they looked at the Kanei Hoyd of Moshe Rabbeinu, and they couldn't handle it. It was too potent. It was too powerful. It was a big Aveda, yeah. But if you read the story, it sounds like not that many people were involved. It wasn't as widespread transgression as you think. The Gemara says, Ksev Zois, these words you have to write, and the rest of the words not allowed to write. Which means like this, and I want you to see about it in realistic terms. When Moshe came down the mountain the first time, Hashem gave him one thing. The Luchas Sabbatis, the tablets. When the fiasco of the Egel happened, and Moshe had to excavate the stones out of the ground, and Moshe went up a second time with those stones, and the Eibusher wrote on those stones the Seres Adibris. When Moshe came down the second time, or the third time, the Eibusher says to him, now you can have a Luches, the Torah in stone, and you can have the Torah Shebiksav, which is the Sefer Torah, and you can have the Torah Shebal Peh. And Dvarim Shebal Peh, you're not allowed to write down Torah Shebal Peh. And that's the basis for the historic fact that Yidden did not write down Mishnah and Gemara for almost 2,000 years, for a very, very long time, for 40 generations, Lavina and Navashi. Because it's an Issa Deiraisa to write down Torah.
Why did we write it?
So this is the famous question. And this is a question which historically repeats itself. It repeats itself first why they wrote the Mishnah, then why they wrote the Gemara, and then why they wrote the Rishonim. And you should know this is part of the reason that a lot of Sfarim are written in Rashi Eisius, including the Zohar and other things, because there's an understanding that if you write it in different letters, it's not so bad as if you're writing it in Eisius with a voice. And then finally, the printing press. The printing press was a whole new dimension of registering Torah, which was supposed to be Baal Peh. And we know stories from Gedolei Yisrael that printing Sfarim, the Frierdiker indicates that printing the Shalah Kodesh Eitz Min Boys may have been the cause for the Gezeres Tak V'Tat. Printing Sfarim, when the Zohar was printed, the publisher of the Zohar was printed in the year Shin Chof, which is about 450 years ago. 450 something years ago. Yeah. There's a Haskama printed, a long Haskama, and the Haskama explains what Kabbalah is, but part of what he writes is how he's not afraid to print his Zohar. It was a sakana. So the answer to all of those questions, and again, if I had more time, we could talk about it a little bit more, is this rule called Eis Las Hashem Efeidu Teirasecha. That sometimes, in order to do for God, you have to destroy the Torah. Bein HaKadosh saw the Torah was going to be forgotten, so he wrote it down. Eis Las Hashem Efeidu Teirasecha. Huh?
Very odd. As a Chabadnik, I'm very surprised you're not mentioning Chassidus.
That what?
Every single rebbe went to prison, or X happened.
Because of the Yuluyim. Okay,
Yeah.
fine, yeah. But the place where this ties into Chassidus would be, first of all, the saying Chassidus, second of all, the writing and publishing Chassidus. But in Tafshin Mem, in the 80s, the Rebbe said take every Sefer Chassidus that was printed in Rashi letters and reprint them in regular letters. He took off the Peda completely. The only Sefer of Chassidus which was printed in regular Eisius was the Tanya. All the other Sfarim printed in Rashi Eisius in the old country. And in America they printed Eisius, they would retype the Torah, retype the Likutei Torah, retype the Derech Matzasecha, retype the Eira Torah, retype all the Sfarim of the Mittel Rebbe, which were all printed in Rashi Eisius. You know the first Tanya was printed in Rashi Eisius? Are you aware of that? The first print of Tanya was Rashi Eisius.
Do you have copies in the library?
It's available. I've seen it by more than one copy. It's easier to get the first print, so I've had to print in later ones. Anyway, so if I had more time, I would bring with you about one of my favorite subjects. The 3 levels of Torah. The carved Torah, the written Torah, and the oral Torah. And the quotable quote is, the carved Torah is all front, there's no back. The Torah Shebeksav has a front and a back. And the Torah Shebal is all rear, it's all acheraim. The face of Torah is Ruach HaKodesh, and the back of Torah is Chochmah, is understanding intellectually, Seichel. So the Luchas Abyss is Kulei Ponim, the Sefer Torah is Ponim V'Achar, and Torah Shebal is Kulei Achar, Avona V'Asaga. And the Eibush gave us a mitzvah to learn and understand the Torah. All it is the Pashas Kisisa, and it flanks the Egel, and mitnas that Egel. Okay, thank you for coming and listening.